Hi everyone, welcome to the online lecture History of Japan. I'm at the Sannai Maruyama site in Aomori Prefecture. This is epoch-making discovery site of the Jomon period. At the time of its discovery, this site was one of Japan's representative Jomon ruins that greatly influenced the view of the Jomon period among Japanese people. Before this great discovery, many researchers interpreted the period as primitive and no civilization. I'll talk about this place later. Let's start! In the last video, I talked about environment and food during long peaceful Jomon period. The topics of this video are tools, fashion and living space. The Jomon period was a time when people did hunting, fishing, and gathering. To do so, they needed tools. Let's see what they used. In the Paleolithic period, people did hunting and used tools made of stones, spears, harpoons, axes, and knives. People in the Jomon period also used the same tools. In the Jomon period, large elephants such as Naomanzo and mammoths were already extinct, and medium-sized animals such as deer, white boars, and bears increased. To hunt them, bows and arrows were more useful than spears. It's believed that people at the time started to use them. In addition, they used stone plates with hollow to grind nuts, fish, and meat. They might cook meatballs. The tool that symbolizes the Jomon period is the Jomon pottery. The time when pottery came into use is defined as the beginning of the period. It was about 16,500 years ago. The pieces of the potteries excavated at Oda Yamamoto site in Aomori Prefecture are currently considered as the oldest ones in the world. This has been scientifically verified. Not only here, old potteries of the same age have been found all over Japan. For example, Koteyama in Tokyo, Fukui Cave in Nagasaki, Miyagase Kitabara in Kanagawa, and Taisho 3 in Hokkaido. The fact that the ruins of the early Jomon period spread from north to south suggests that people lived in all over the Japanese archipelago at the time. In the last video, I mentioned that the Jomon period was named after the Jomon pattern, or code mark. But the patterns and the decorations on potteries in this period varied widely from period to period and region to region. The bottom of most potteries are flat, but some are pointed. Most of the pointed ones were used in the early stage of the period. In particular, Kaengata Doki is very unique. Kaen means flame. Doki is pottery, very decorative and artistic. Main characteristic of the pottery is the four fancy protrusions like chicken comb attached to the top of it. The mouth of the pottery has jagged shape like sawtooth. The body has spiral patterns. They don't have a code mark. They look like artworks for display, but Jomon people actually use them. Inside of the pottery is covered with soot from burning nuts and meat. Perhaps they expressed their appreciation and respect for fire through decoration, as they used potteries to boil and cook food in their daily lives. On the other hand, some researchers have suggested that the patterns represent swirling water, stream, and waves because many potteries of this style were excavated in Niigata Prefecture, especially around the Shinano River basin. These potteries were used from about 5300 to 4800 years ago. Nuts, wild vegetables, and potatoes are abundant in the mountains of this region. Even today, noppejiru, a stew of these bounties of nature, is a popular local dish of this area. It may be a remnant of the Jomon period. The pottery was a great invention of this period. It enabled the preservation and the stockpiling of food and cooking such as boiling. Horse chestnuts and acorns needed to be deaccented before eating. To do this, people used potteries to boil them. After that, imagine that the nuts were placed on a stone plate, grounded with a stone, kneaded, and then baked cookies. They ate cookies. Carbonized cookies have been found at some Jomon ruins. This is a picture of the cookies baked about 6,000 years ago. The main ingredients are chestnuts and walnuts. They were found at Ondashi site in Yamagata Prefecture. In the late Jomon period, people began to use potteries to produce salt. Salt-producing potteries have been found mainly in the Kanto and the Tohoku regions. These are the names of the ruins with their location. Let's take a closer look around Lake Kasumigaura. Salt-producing potteries dating from about 4,000 to 3,000 years ago were found at Kamitakatsu site along present Kasumigaura. Around Kasumigaura, many salt-producing potteries have been found at many sites. At the time, this area was a sea. Satohama site in Miyagi Prefecture is believed that it was the largest salt-producing area. Nowadays, there is a city called Shiogama near here. Shio is salt, and Gama means pot. According to myth, it is known as the last place visited and settled by a deity named Shiotsuchi Ojinokami, who is said to have taught people how to make salt. At Shiogama Jinja located in the city, this deity is still enshrined as one of navigation, tides, and controlling the ingredients of the sea. The potteries must have enriched the diet of the people of the time. When I was a kid, I tried to make Jomon pottery with codmark, but after firing, the pottery was broken into pieces. Talking about the pottery, I have to tell you about lacquer. Lacquer is a milky white sap that comes from scratches on the surface of lacquer trees. Lacquer was already being applied to pottery. A number of red-colored potteries, including bowls, plates, and pots, have been found at Jomon ruins. Red lacquer is a mixture of lacquer and natural iron oxide. Some studies suggest that red was a special color for the Jomon people, and it may have meant protection against evil, revival, rebirth, and prosperity. Lacquer was also used as a glue. Some broken potteries repaired with lacquer have been found in some places. The ancient Japanese restoration technique using lacquer is still carried on today in a technique called Kintsugi. Lacquer is used to bond cracked or broken ceramics. Gold powder is used to cover the traces of lacquer left on the joints. The gold-colored seams of the restored ceramics are enjoyed as keshiki. It means scenery. Here in Japan, we still use lacquer for our daily lives, especially wooden kitchen and tableware. Those products are called Shikki. It's one of very famous and important Japanese cultural assets. Today, Ninohe in Iwate Prefecture is a major production center of rare and valuable domestic lacquer. I want to show you a very rare item. At Sannai Maruyama site in Aomori Prefecture, a unique living ware was excavated. It's a carbonized basket woven from the bark of a cypress tree. Since there were walnuts inside, it's believed that it was used to collect them. Significant point about the tools of the Jomon period is that no battle weapons have been found at Jomon ruins. Of course, there must have been some wrangling and fighting though. In 2016, a study by a research group from Yamaguchi and Okayama universities revealed that the death rate from violence was extremely low in the Jomon period. The research group collected 2582 pieces of Jomon-era wounded human bone data from 242 sites across Japan, spanning about 10,000 years, and calculated the mortality rate due to violence. Of these, 23 showed evidence of having received wounds. Compared to other periods in Japan, this is less than 1/5. This fact is very important because it tells us that the Jomon period was very peaceful. As I showed you in the last video, the period was comfortable and blessed with rich food. It's easy to imagine that there was no need to fight. Let's move on to the next topic, fashion and living space. It can be seen that people in the Jomon period made not only daily tools such as pottery, but also other items that enrich their lives. I've just told you about lacquered potteries. Let's talk more about lacquer. Many potteries and wooden utensils, combs, and other objects that lacquer sap was used as a coating have been excavated from the Jomon ruins. Red lacquered burial accessories were discovered at Kakinoshima B site in Hakodate, Hokkaido in June 2001. There was no body in the tomb, but lacquer thread products that may have been hanging from the head, both shoulders, both arms, and both legs were found. Scientific analysis revealed that this is the world's oldest lacquer product dating back about 9,000 years ago. People lived here from about 9,000 to 3,000 years ago. A red lacquered comb about 6,100 years ago was excavated from a shell mound in Torihama, Fukui Prefecture. And this is a piece of lacquered wooden utensil back in about 6,000 years ago. At the same place, an even older lacquer branch back in about 12,600 years ago was found too. About fashion, not so many clothes of this period were found. Based on archaeological materials excavated at various sites, here is an image of what people wore. Clothing was probably basically made of hemp and other plant fibers. The oldest needles in Japan used about 10,000 years ago were found at Tochibara Iwakage site, Nagano Prefecture. Many needles from the Jomon period were excavated throughout Japan too. Most of them were made of deer, boar, and other animal bones. Weaving technology already existed. In some places, there was snow in winter. It seems that they wore animal fur when it was cold. Ladies seem to enjoy putting on accessories such as earrings, bracelets, anklets, pendants, and hairpins that were made of various kinds of materials like jade, crystal, amber, animal bones and horns, seashells, woods and clay. Well, let's talk about living space. Unlike the Paleolithic period, when people lived a mobile lifestyle, the Jomon period can be described as a time of hunting, gathering, and a sedentary lifestyle. Look at these pictures. People in the Jomon period lived in houses called Tateanashiki Jukyo. It's a pit dwelling. This is a reconstructed dwelling at Ofune site in Hokkaido. People lived here from about 5,500 to 4,000 years ago. To build their houses, they used wood and thatch. This is how they built houses. First, they dug ground to make a floor. It's a semi-basement house with the floor on the surface dug down about 1 meter from the ground, sometimes deeper. The surrounding soil was reinforced on the walls with split wood to prevent collapse. Deep holes were dug in the main part of the floor, and the wooden poles were placed there to form the framework of the house. Finally, the wooden framework is covered with thatch roof. From the entrance, one descends into the house via wooden stairs. In the center of the house is a hearth for cooking. On the other side of the entrance across the hearth is a sacred place where it is assumed that prayers were offered to all beings. People must have offered thanks to nature and their ancestors. Floor space varies in size. Average is 20 square meters. Let's take a look at the evolution of residential areas during the Jomon period. The areas are called mura. It means village. In the early period, there were only habitation sites. As time went on, graves were found near there. After that, dwellings, graves, storage facilities, and the shell mounds introduced in the previous video were built in the villages. Toward the end of the period, ritual sites began to be seen in the villages. Then after, communal cemeteries and communal ritual sites were constructed between neighboring settlements. But later, each became an independent place. Ofune site is here. Oda Yamamoto site, where the oldest pieces of pottery were found, is here at the beginning of the period. Kakinoshima and Kakinoshima B sites, where the lacquered items I've just showed you were found, is here. Finally, I want to tell you more details about Sannai Maruyama site. This area flourished in the same period as Ofune site and had the same settlement structure. This is a symbolic and the most famous Jomon period site. The earliest records of this place was written in 1623. The story is back in 1992. When excavation was conducted before the planned construction of a baseball stadium facility here, the discovery of large-scale Jomon ruins made headlines. In 1994, The discovery of the remains of a large building made of giant chestnut trees about 1 meter in diameter led to a growing call for the preservation of the site. In the same year, the decision was made to stop the construction and to preserve the site permanently. In 2000, the site was designated as a special historic site. And in 2003, approximately 2,000 art crafts excavated here were designated as important cultural properties. The area of the ruins is about 420,000 square meters. People lived here from about 5,900 to 4,200 years ago and had a population of about 500 people. It would have been considered a large city at the time. Let's take a closer look. Within the community, family houses, assembly halls, roads, storages, graves, and garbage dumps are systematically laid out. People planted and cultivated chestnut trees. These are the buildings that stand out in particular. First one is the large building made of large chestnut trees. It was restored as a building 14.7 meter high. It said that the building was used for the place to worship the sacred, a watchtower, and a monument. The pillar holes were about 2 meters in diameter and depth, and the holes were all spaced 4.2 meters apart. When this place was excavated, giant chestnut wooden pillars about 1 meter in diameter were found. To prevent decay, the perimeter and the lower portion of the pillars were burned and carbonized. Because of the abundance of groundwater, they remained unrotted. The other one is the largest building at this site. It's about 32 meters long and 10 meters wide, and so large compared to the surrounding houses. It might have been an assembly hall, a communal workshop, or a communal house. It's believed that many people had already been mobilized, and the construction of settlements with large-scale civil works was systematically conducted. When I mentioned about tools of the Jomon period, I said it was very peaceful times because no weapons for battle have been found at the Jomon sites. In addition, ruins of the Jomon period is characterized by absence of walls to protect residents from outside enemies. Sannai Maruyama site is a very large ruin, and excavations are still ongoing. I look forward to new discoveries in the future. Before wrapping up the lecture, I want to talk about population during the Jomon period. Normal process for determining population in archaeology is to first establish a time period, measure the number of sites that existed during the setting period, then calculate the number of people who would have lived there, and finally estimate their population. This is a figure that I showed you in the last video. About 12,000 years ago, Ice Age ended and temperature began to rise. Total population of the Japanese archipelago at the time is estimated to be about 20,000. The major eruption of Kikai caldera about 7,300 years ago caused great disaster in western part of Japan, and many people migrate to eastern and northern parts like Hokkaido, Tohoku, and Kanto regions. Sannai Maruyama site is located in Tohoku. About 6,000 years ago, it was very warm and the sea level reached its highest point. Hokkaido, Tohoku, Kanto regions were very comfortable places to live. This is a time when Sannai Maruyama site flourished. Total population also reached its highest. It was about 260,000. Close to the end of the Jomon period, cold weather set in. People lived at Sannai Maruyama site did hunting, fishing, and cultivating chestnut trees and vegetables. But it became hard to do it. It's believed that people lived in Hokkaido and the Tohoku regions began to move to warmer areas. When paddy rice cultivation gradually started in Japan about 3,000 years ago, the population was about 80,000. When we look at the fact of temperature, sea level, climate, natural disaster, and population, everything is correlated. Well, let's move on to the next. Japan travel tips. These are the places I showed you in this video and sightseeing spots near there. Ofune, Kakinoshima, and Kakinoshima B sites. Around these sites, I want to recommend two places. First, Onuma Quasi National Park. You can see beautiful view of Mount Kaengata over Lake Onuma. There are sightseeing boats. The boat ride is about 40 minutes. Next one is Hakodate. It's one of the leading port cities located at the southern tip of the big island Hokkaido. The city is famous for beautiful night view from the top of Mount Hakodate. When the weather is fine during the day, you have a chance to see Mount Kaengata. Old-fashioned warehouses are renovated into shopping malls that sells local foods, souvenirs, and crafts. They are located close to Hakodate Bay area and Hakodate Station. The city is famous for seafood, especially ikasomen. It's sashimi of squid, looks like thin noodles. Sannai Maruyama site. There is a museum within the site where visitors can see many valuable excavated items. This site is located about 1.5 kilometers from Shin-Aomori Station on the Tohoku Shinkansen. Anybody who loves history or becomes interested in the Jomon period, highly recommend it. Hirosaki Castle. It's located about 40 kilometers from Sannai Maruyama site. This place is very famous in Japan for its cherry blossoms and autumn leaves. On a fine day, beautiful Mount Iwaki can be seen from the castle tower. Shiogama Jinja. The main deity is Shiotsuchi Ojinokami. The date of construction of the shrine is not clear, but its origin is said to be before the Nara period. Close to here, there is Matsushima Bay. Tourists can enjoy cruise there. Seafood is abundant and delicious here as well. That's all. Thank you for watching. See you next time.